What is going on, people? It is August 19th on a Monday morning, and finally, college football is back this week. Kind of. Florida State plays, and then you got a couple other games that week. I'm calling it is the beginning of college football, and I think it's the best time of the year. I know the NFL rules the world, and the NFL is king in America when it comes to sports because of the gambling aspect and fantasy football, but we're in the South. And the South is ruled by college football. What's going on, everybody? I am Dylan Denmark. That is Graham Marsh. Graham, agree or disagree that it is the best time of the season when college football finally comes back?
I'll answer that question in a second, but I want to disagree with you first.
Okay.
You can gamble on college football, brother. I do it all the time.
Okay.
You said NFL is king because of gambling.
Oh, yeah, it is.
Man, I love me betting on me a good old Wednesday night Maction game. Dude, that's big. That's big time.
College football is big, but it's nowhere near the NFL when it comes to gambling.
You mean that you don't find yourself really deep in an over on a Syracuse Wake Forest game on a Friday night in the Carrier Dome?
No,
because nothing gets my juices flowing quite like that.
Yeah, I don't do those like when Jacksonville State played like every Tuesday last year, and I watched a lot of those.
I love those, man.
I only gamble on games I know I'm pretty certain of.
See, I do the opposite.
I think I'm certain of. Yeah, I'm not.
I only gamble on games I know nothing about.
I'm not a degenerate.
All right, ask me what you asked me actually to begin with.
I said, "Is this the best time of the
year?
Yeah,
of course. Yeah. Dude, this is Christmas.
This gets your blood flowing,
dude. For football watchers, for those of us that consume the sport like you and I do, and listeners of this podcast would, man, this is like the holidays.
So Greg McElroy, this was last Wednesday, I think it was. He goes on with Colin Cowherd. He goes an hour talking about college football in general and talks about his playoff predictions and USC, what they're going to do and whatnot. And at the very end, he goes, give me an overrated, give me an underrated team. And McElroy goes, this will be my overrated team. I forget what he said. But he goes, underrated, Miami. Miami is loaded this year. They got the best quarterback coming out of the portal. They got the best running back coming out of the portal. They have one of the best edge guys. They have 3 5-stars. On paper, this roster is stacked. And everybody goes, well, Miami this, Miami that. We've said this for Miami about the last 20 years. And yes, it's true. He says one team we said this about last year was Texas. And what did Texas do last year? They went all the way to the Final Four and came a play away from going to the national title. He thinks that Miami is last year's Texas. And you hear all this national media go on and on about Miami, and it's like, whatever, it's Miami. I don't know why, but the way he put it kind of made me second-guess everything. I'm like, because we did our predictions with the station, I had Miami as the most disappointing team just because everybody thinks that they're going to be really good. And the way he put that, I'm sitting here thinking, man, Miami might be really good this year.
Yeah, I mean, you're doing it, though.
Yeah. I am. I'm easily persuaded by the way.
Look. But here's the thing. Here's why I think he might be onto something. Okay, so Florida Miami week 1, we all know, huge game, whatever, right? And we talked about this before in a couple podcasts, maybe a couple weeks or a month ago now. You and I talked about which coach between Napier and Cristobal would have a tougher uphill battle if they lost this game to win the fan base back, because either team that loses this game loses the fan base, right? We kind of both know that. But what's the tougher path to get them back? You said Cristobal, I said Napier. Let me tell you why I said Cristobal. After Florida walks off the field against Miami, win, lose, or draw, or after Miami walks off the field against Florida, win, lose, or draw, next week, Florida A&M. The week after, Ball State.
Oof.
The week after, USF. Who's decent, but USF. The week after, Virginia Tech.
Okay.
California, Louisville, and then the Florida State game. Man, that's a pretty soft schedule between the Gators and Florida State, man.
That is very fortunate.
Man, that ain't a lot of people to play. So, and this is what I was saying a couple weeks ago, how I thought Napier had a tougher uphill battle to climb. We were arguing. We kind of agreed, but we're just viewing it from different perspectives. My view with Cristobal is I think you were saying he doesn't have any trademark matchups he can win to kind of get the fan base back after Florida until the Florida State game, which is a fair point. My point was he's going to win them all. So, look, that's the thing about Miami is whether you think that they are that type of team on paper or not, there's not a lot of games to prove they are or not. They basically play the other two big three teams in the state, and that's about it in terms of tough competition for quite some time. I think they play one or two more tougher games down the schedule, but I mean, unless Kyron Drones comes in there and Kyron Drones is a good player, but you see what I'm saying? Like, there's just not a lot. There's easily a world where they're 10-2, 11-1 just because of the schedule.
But yes, but how much of that? He was saying it based off of the roster they have. He thinks they're a loaded roster, and he thinks that they could be playing in an ACC title game.
Well, I think they could be too. Again,
right,
simply because
the two of the same, right? But I mean, the way he's like, this roster is really good. This roster is one of the best in the country, and we're just blowing them off because it's Miami, and this is something that we've done the last 20 years. Instead of looking at it from the schedule standpoint of saying, okay, it's a favorable schedule, and they could just be A-okay and then make the playoff.
Where I would push back is I don't know that they're being blown off. I think they're getting a lot of the same praise they've gotten in the past about being really, really good on paper.
I think this is a little different.
It's the fact that Cristobal is in year 3 and he objectively disappointed in year 1 and 2. I think that's playing a big role.
If we go back since 2010, Miami, I can't think of a better roster. Obviously, they had that run in 17, but I don't remember going into the year everybody talking about Miami. I think it's all obviously a lot of it has to do with Cam Ward, the quarterback, being pretty good, or what we expect him to be. And then the running back position, it was kind of shuffling in and out. And now you got what looks like a dude, the best one coming out of the portal. And then you add the defense that's pretty good that Cristobal owns. I mean, kind of the pieces kind of add up. I don't know. It was something interesting that I wanted to.
So I don't mean to keep harping on the schedule because I know you're actually trying to like talk about them as a football team, and I'm just being like, oh, the schedule. But I just keep looking at this, man. Florida, okay, nationally right now, if you ask any national person, is Florida a good football team right now? They're all going to say no. Okay, their win total is 4.5 for a reason. It's the schedule, but it's also the fact that people don't think they're going to be very good. Florida's their second toughest game.
Yeah, Florida State. And
I mean, okay, look.
Do they play Clemson, Notre Dame?
No.
They don't play
so
Clemson.
let's go one more, and I'll go through it really quickly. Right after Florida, Miami's got Florida A&M, Ball State, South Florida, Virginia Tech, California, Louisville, Florida State. Okay, good game. And then after that, they finish the year out. Duke, Georgia Tech, Wake Forest, Syracuse.
Duke, Georgia Tech, Wake Forest. Yeah, that's... A lot of those teams, they're not going to be ranked.
Florida is the second best team they play on that schedule. And they have a 4.5 win total. And I hear what you're saying. They do have a really good roster. I mean, Cam Ward was the number 1 transfer portal quarterback for a reason. Florida State wanted Cam Ward bad, and they lost out on him to Miami. Right? Originally thought he was going to go to the NFL, and so we all know the story. They got good receivers. They got Reuben Bain, right? That's their defensive end. They got him. Like, they've got good players. Their secondary is a suspect thing. That's what even Miami fans, I think, will tell you is the secondary is probably the area of concern, at least right now, for their team. But man, like roster wise, what you're saying is correct. I mean, they're going to roll into every game except arguably 2 and have far and away a better roster, and they still have a better roster than Florida, I think, top to bottom. So probably 11 of their 12 games, they have inarguably a better roster, maybe all 12, because FSU you could debate that, who has a better roster between FSU and Miami. I mean, I totally agree it's there, but are they going to do it? And McElroy is saying, we're all saying the same, but that's a fair thing to say, dude.
It's true.
It's 100% a fair thing to say. Even Miami, if you're a Miami fan listening to this, you have to admit that's a fair thing to say.
The thing with Miami the last 2 years isn't the games those are the big games that they've lost. It's the games that they shouldn't have lost, which is Middle Tennessee State and Georgia Tech. So
correct. And
if Miami can avoid that, they'll be just fine.
I could see a world, and again, I think if you're an objective Miami fan listening to this, you could agree with this. And this is not like hating. This is just breaking out the schedule and saying just the history. Florida's in a little bit of a similar boat in some ways, but with Miami, I would say, there's easily a world where they beat Florida and Florida State, but then South Florida gets them. Virginia Tech gets them. Georgia Tech gets them again. Like, those are, and you just said it, those are the games that snake bite Miami. Like, in the last however many years, we've looked at Miami and said, man, they've disappointed. To your point, we've said they've disappointed because Middle Tennessee ran the score up on them. Because they had Georgia Tech beat and didn't take a knee and end up losing the game. It's because of games like that. It's not because of the big games that they might win or lose, depending on how good the team is they're playing.
So Forbes came out with an article last week. Did you see this article? How much sales have increased for college football across the country?
Ticket sales?
Yes.
To go to games?
Yes.
No.
Okay. What increased from last year to this year? I think you think sales have went up this year. Ticket buying.
When you say sales, you mean overall sales?
Yes.
You mean this is from
ticket sales. See steep increase for 2024. This is on StubHub.
Okay, yeah, I think you were saying StubHub before we started.
Yeah.
So just overall college football ticket
Yes.
sales. Okay. How much percentage?
Yes.
10%.
43%.
Wow. Why?
Yeah.
Because
of
there's
all
better
the
games.
conference realignment and all these good games that we're gonna see.
Yeah, that's fair.
So everybody crying about all this new change and college football is not going to be the same and it's going to look weird. People like it. Get used to it. You want to throw me a jab at? Do you think the 10 games? This will be quick. Just the 10 games you think that are in the top 10 of sales, the best-selling games this season
so far. Okay. Is Florida Miami in there?
Florida Miami's number 10.
Okay, so that's 10. Give me Ohio State Notre Dame.
No.
What? Okay. Give me Ohio State Oregon.
Yes.
Okay, that's 2. Ohio State Michigan.
Yes.
Okay, that's 3.
3 and 7.
What about?
There's a big game week 1.
Georgia Clemson.
Yeah, that's one of them. That wasn't the one I was thinking about. That's number 9.
Is that USC Notre Dame, right? They play week 1? Or
USC LSU.
LSU, sorry.
That's week 1.
So that's 5 of them. I got 5 of them, right?
Think of your SEC team.
Yeah. Georgia, Tennessee?
No. You got
Texas. Oh, Texas, Oklahoma?
Texas, Oklahoma is one of them. Are they? No, Texas, Oklahoma is not.
But there's a Texas somebody's got
Texas, yeah, there's 3 Texas.
Does Texas play LSU?
No.
Texas, Florida?
No. Texas at Michigan.
Oh, wow. Okay. I didn't even realize they played. Okay,
Yeah, that's week 2.
That's huge. Okay.
Then you got Texas A&M, the game that's renewed, the renewed rivalry.
Like, that makes sense. I should have guessed that one.
Yeah. And then Notre Dame at Texas A&M.
Wow. Okay.
That's week 1 also. I didn't even know about that. So,
that's a hell of a schedule for Texas.
Yeah. I mean, you talk about the first 2 weeks. We're going to know a lot of good teams of where they stand compared to other good teams potentially very early in the season. I just kind of wanted to throw that out there. It says conference realignment is driving ticket sales with some new and returning matchups. Top 5 new conference matchups: Georgia, Texas A&M, Ohio State, Oregon, USC, Michigan. That's another big one. And then UCLA at Penn State. Yeah, whatever.
Well,
UCLA, nobody cares about UCLA.
So let's bring that article locally for the Gators. I'm just looking through Florida's schedule real quick just to have it all in front of me. I obviously know their schedule, but I mean, in the past, you and I have gone to plenty of Florida games together. When we were in college, we went to every game. Now we still go to quite a bit. And we know this. I'm not breaking any news here. What are the games that you don't sell out and you see a lot of empty seats? It's the
FCS schools.
Right. It's the Charleston Southerns of the world. It's those types of games. So the other games, you know how the Gator football Twitter account will tweet out, the game is sold out, right? They'll tweet that on Thursday or something before the game, it's sold out. And that's air quotes because resale and stuff, it's not always. But that means
Florida has sold all their tickets.
But that means the game's going to be full, right? That means you're not going to see empty seats when you're at the game, and it's going to look, the swamp's going to be the swamp, right? Games where that will be true. Florida, Miami, week 1, right? Sanford, Florida, probably not, so skip that game. A&M.
Mostly.
I would say that game would be sold out.
Probably.
I think so. UCF.
I think it'll be sold out because I think a lot of UCF fans will want to
I
travel
agree.
up.
I agree.
Even if Florida's not good to start the year.
Kentucky? Maybe not.
Depends on the season.
Kentucky's give or take. Not counting Florida, Georgia. That's cocktail party. LSU, yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
Ole Miss, I would say yes. And that's the last home game of the year. Ole Miss is. So, I mean,
I hate how they always go
I basically just gave you the entire schedule, and all but one game, there's a possibility it gets sold out. At least all but 2 or 3 games.
I know how the calendar falls with Florida, Georgia. They always have a bye the week before, but it's always like you have a game in mid-October, and then they always go a whole month without having a home game. Always. So
it is, yeah. I don't love the way it. I like. Do you like always having the bye before Georgia?
I'm fine with it.
I mean,
that's kind of college football. You always have your big game middle of the year, and then always take a bye. Like Alabama, LSU's always has a bye the week before.
Yeah.
Ohio State, I don't know about their schedule, but I just know that's always how the calendar falls.
But I kind of wish it was more like the NFL, where your bye is a little bit more like strategically placed. Maybe it's a little earlier, maybe it's a little later. I don't know. I think it might be a fun wrinkle.
The last 5 minutes or so we got. Graham, give me your Power 5 or Power 4 conference champions, and then give me your national champion.
All right, Power 4 conference champion.
So give me in the SEC. Who you got?
Well, let me go backwards. I want to go with the conference I know the least first, which will be, I think the conference I know the least about is the Big 12.
Okay.
Big 12, Utah's in the new Big 12. Give me Utah.
Agreed.
Cam Rising back
for a 17th year.
Yeah. Cam Rising.
I think he graduated high school the same year as us.
I think Cam Rising was recruited to go to Florida by Urban. But yeah, Cam Rising is back. What's our coach's name? He's a great coach.
Kyle Whittingham.
Yeah. Great coach. I think they're just the most tried and true, proven team that's currently in the Big 12. Highest floor, and give me Utah in the Big 12. Big 10, give me Ohio State. ACC, give me Florida State. SEC, give me Georgia. That's pretty chalk, but
yeah, I'm more of the agreeance there. It's more of, I think Georgia's the best team. I think Georgia was the best team last year. They just happened to lose to Alabama at the wrong place at the wrong time.
Jalen McElroy did the Lord's work.
Yes,
for one Saturday.
Florida State, I trust Mike Norvell out of anybody in the ACC.
Agree.
Ohio State, I think they lose. I think they go to Oregon, lose to Oregon, they rematch, and then Ohio State, Oregon play again. And Ohio State beats them in the Big Ten title.
Ooh, that'd be fun. That'd be really fun.
And then Utah wins the Big 12. Heisman, I don't really care. I said Carson Beck for we did a Tintin Excel thing last week. I mean, with quarterbacks on really good teams, I don't think it's going to happen this year, but obviously we've seen in the past where you blow out teams and then your quarterback's taken out in the fourth quarter and then your stats aren't as good, so then you don't win the Heisman, which is, always just that's how it always goes. But the national champion for me is easily Georgia. They're the best team returning. They got the best coach. They got the best staff. They got the best everything. The best quarterback. I think Carson Beck will be the number one pick. If he doesn't win the Heisman, he'll be in contention for it, and I think they'll end up playing Ohio State.
What about Dylan Gabriel?
And Oregon? I'm just not a big believer in Oregon, man. Like, Oregon's got to show me a little bit more this year. I think all the talk about them in the offseason is because everybody loves Dan Lanning, and yes, he's a good coach, but Ohio State is so loaded this year, man. You got the best running back coming from out of Ole Miss, and you got Caleb Downs, the best DB probably in the country.
I agree with you in terms of winning the conference, but winning the Heisman.
Oh, okay.
Dylan Gabriel's going to put up stupid numbers, dude.
Yeah, he will.
I think when you look at in today's college football, you got to look at who's going to put up the most stupid numbers.
So it'll be Quinn Ewers, it'll be Dylan Gabriel, Carson Beck, if he can play all four quarters, which I think he mostly will. And then you could throw in Jalen Milroe.
I think Carson Beck might play all four quarters, but I think of all the guys you just said, Georgia relies on their QB to produce the least. It doesn't mean Carson Beck's not really good and won't produce, but it means that they've got the heftiest stable of backs. They've got the most willingness out of those teams to commit to the run game. I just think a really good, efficient stat line for Carson Beck this year is going to look more like 2 or 3 touchdowns, high completion percentage, no turnovers type of thing. Whereas Dylan Gabriel,
they're for 4 touchdowns every game.
And those are the guys that have been winning the Heisman recently. Look at Jaden Daniels won the Heisman last year mostly because his stats were just ridiculous. I mean, his stats were video game stats. And I think traditionally with the Heisman, I think voters in the past used to lean more towards the best player on good teams that were competing for titles. But I think now with the expanded playoff, especially now with the expanded playoff and conference realignment and whatnot, and the fact that you're going to have more teams that are going to have a couple more losses throughout their schedule, I think it's going to be more and more and more just who's the guy with the craziest stats.
Give me one last thing before we get out of here. The most disappointing team in the college football this year. The team that everybody thinks is going to be really good, and they're going to not be good.
Who did I put for that? I believe.
Let me look for you.
I believe I put this team.
Miami?
Yeah.
I put Miami. I think you put Colorado. You put Colorado.
No, Colorado. That's who I want to pick. Yeah.
I think Colorado's going to win the same 3 or 4 games. Deion's son goes to the NFL and Deion leaves Colorado. I'm very confident in that. Deion has not coached his son since he was in high school.
365 days from now, Colorado's going to have a coach not named Deion Sanders.
Yes. I mean, I would say, it's going to be in January, they'll have a new coach.
I agree.
They'll be talked about beginning of the year, probably. They probably not as much because of all the good games and all the new alignment we have. But they'll still be talked about, but they won't be.
I think the last one we didn't talk about was that we did in this college football graphic thing for the station was most surprising. Who's your most surprising
I
team?
put Kansas State. I heard somebody say Kansas State. They gave me a bunch of stuff. Like I think they'll play the Big 12 title game. If I had to give you a really surprising one, I'd say SMU. They went 9-3 last year, lost their bowl game. The only 3 games they lost were to Power 5 teams. And it wouldn't surprise me because they have a favorable schedule in the ACC if they kind of slipped up and went to the ACC title game.
And Lash is a good coach, man.
Yes.
Lash is a really good coach. What about the Wolfpack?
NC State?
Up in Raleigh, North Carolina.
They always slip up. They always give teams that are better than them a good game. They never, when they're expected, once they finally get ranked or in the top 20, they never produce.
But I think that's programs kind of ceiling.
Right.
Yeah.
They're always known for upsetting FSU at home or something like that.
NC State's thing is not winning the ACC, being in the playoff, vying for a title. That's not their thing. The NC State's thing is on years that the top dogs are down, they're going to beat them. And even on years that they're not down, if NC State is up, they're going to be a massive speed bump in the way for Florida State, for Clemson, for potentially Miami on years they're competing to go to the ACC title and win it. They're going to be a team that's really in the way for them. And I think especially that when those teams have to go to Raleigh, that's a really tough out for them. That's not a game where Florida State shows up and they get up by 14 or 20 early on in the first half and NC State lies down. That's a game where third, fourth quarter, Florida State's got to still be playing.
Yeah. All right. You got to roll. Next week, we're efforting to get a couple of guests, one from the Florida program and one from the Miami program. 2 guys that know the program very, very well, 2 alumni. We'll leave it at that. And we'll give you another show Wednesday. Until then, we'll see y'all.